My name is Ross Ulbricht, and I created the Silk Road. Though I was arrested on charges related to the website and illegal activities on it, that's not how I ended up with 2 life sentences. I was charged with being part of a murder-for-hire scheme, and those charges were pushed across the whole of corporate media for months. Those charges never went to court and were dropped after my trial. So what really happened? Why does the only alleged victim, Curtis Green, still support my case for clemency? Okay, let's go down the rabbit hole together.
So this guy, he's 27, and his name is Ross Ulbricht, a libertarian dreamer. Let's call him Dread Pirate Roberts. He hates how the US government operates. He hates how they regulate and intervene in everything. So one day in 2011, he comes up with an idea to get around all the government regulations. So he's going to build a website, and on that site, you would be able to buy or sell anything you want anonymously. Things like credit card data, hacking tools, fake IDs, fake passports, counterfeit documents, drugs, psychedelics, opiates, illegal revolvers, stuff like that. Let's just call it Amazon for buying illegal stuff. So Dread Pirate Roberts gets to work. He hires someone to help him build the site and eventually launches it on the dark web. The site is called Silk Road, the Amazon of the dark web. The site became one of the most successful e-commerce platforms in the world. About 18% of drug buyers worldwide turned to it. People flocked to buy all kinds of crazy things, and they paid for it all in Drawber, Bitcoin, making it harder to trace, back when Bitcoin was just 50 cents. And just like Amazon, or any other e-commerce platform, Silk Road allowed users to rate and review sellers. Sounds crazy, right? Imagine rating that favorite dude who sold you some pretty dank Zaza, or giving the strap plug 5 stars for the heat. But Ross, Dread Pirate Roberts, had a vision. His vision was to create a free market untouchable by the government, a place where buyers and sellers could interact without interference. And also Silk Road even had its own book club with discussions on Austrian economics, readings from Hayek and von Mises. By 2012, his vision was already becoming reality. The Silk Road site was booming. Ross had many employees working for him, and at its peak, Silk Road had hundreds of vendors. The site was making $500,000 in sales every week. It had a bunch of active users, buying and selling illegal stuff from one another. Ross made a commission off every sale, so he was raking in all the money. And the best part? Law enforcement had no idea how to stop it, since everything was done in total anonymity. At its peak, Silk Road was responsible for 90% of all Bitcoin transactions. This was before Bitcoin went mainstream. And what really made Ross's vision a reality was the site's reliance on Bitcoin. There were no banks, no middlemen, just decentralized, anonymous transactions. It was already a game changer. Pirate was worth tens of millions of dollars, insanely rich, but barely spending it, since he was too busy running the site. But here was the problem with the Silk Road being so successful so quickly. With revolution comes risk. As people started talking about it everywhere, the system felt threatened and decided to fight back. And guess who now had their eyes on it? The one thing Dread Pirate Roberts hated: the US government. The feds started investigating. That's when DEA agent Carl Force got involved. He went undercover, became an active user on Silk Road, and eventually befriended Ross online. At some point, Carl and other DEA agents discovered the identity of one of Ross's workers. His username was Chronic Pain. Everyone on Silk Road used usernames to hide their real identities. So Carl and the feds set up an operation to bust Chronic Pain. Bang! They got him. Arrested. Here's his mugshot. When Pirate found out that Chronic Pain had been arrested, he got worried, because it was only a matter of time before the feds would figure out who he was. And if Chronic Pain snitched, it could bring down Silk Road and his entire operation. On top of that, Ross had gotten word that Chronic Pain was stealing Bitcoin from the site. So, in 2013, Ross allegedly did the only thing he could think of. He decided to hire a hitman to get rid of Chronic Pain, maybe to stop him from snitching, maybe to stop him from stealing money. But nobody knows for sure if Chronic Pain was stealing. Ross reached out to a buddy he thought could hire a hitman. That buddy was Carl, the undercover DEA agent. Pirate allegedly offered Carl $80,000 to help him take someone out, but since Carl was an agent, he staged the whole thing. He worked with Chronic Pain, took fake photos of him lying on the ground, looking unalived, and sent them to Ross. Ross believed it. And by the way, Ross allegedly ordered 5 more hits on other people at different times. Allegedly. By 2013, various branches of the US government were investigating Silk Road. They were still trying to figure out who was running the operation, since the whole site was anonymous. That even Ross's employees didn't know his real identity, until eventually, the feds claimed they discovered the IP address of Silk Road by solving a CAPTCHA, revealing the server's location. But the cybersecurity experts immediately disputed the discovery of the site's IP address. As they ask, how did the feds really find it? Why didn't they need a warrant? The more people looked, the more questions surfaced. But still, the feds traced activity to a few places, one being an internet cafe in San Francisco, and Ross just so happened to live nearby. They put the clues together and concluded Ross was the guy running Silk Road. But there was a problem. The feds couldn't just rush him. They didn't have enough evidence. Plus, Ross was smart. His devices were locked and password protected. Without his laptop unlocked, they couldn't prove anything. So they set up an operation. They needed to catch him with his laptop open and logged in. They tracked Ross, studied his routine, and followed him to the San Francisco Public Library, where he often worked on the site with the public library's Wi-Fi. So then some undercover agents staged a scene, pretending to be a couple arguing. Ross looked up, distracted by the commotion. Boom. In that moment, an agent swooped in and grabbed his laptop while it was still open. Another agent grabbed Ross before he could react. That was it. The arrest of the guy who built an operation that threatened the entire system. He didn't know it yet, but this was the last time he would touch freedom. They seized Ross's laptop, and inside was his personal Bitcoin wallet, holding 144,000 Bitcoin. At the time, worth millions. Today, billions, as we know. Ross was one of the largest Bitcoin holders in history. Allegedly, Silk Road generated $1.2 billion in sales during its short life. Ross himself made about $184 million. Ross spent his first 6 weeks in solitary confinement, where there was no sunlight, no contact. His cell was bare. Prosecutors claimed at least 6 people had died from overdosing on drugs bought through Silk Road. families of overdose victims came to court in tears, giving statements against Ross. The prosecution also brought up the alleged murder-for-hire plots, even though Ross was never formally charged with them. These were included as uncharged crimes, and no evidence were allowed, no defense allowed, just whispers meant to sway the jury. So, on May 29, 2015, Ross Ulbricht was sentenced to 2 life sentences plus 40 years, without parole, just for running Silk Road. It's just like a death sentence for running a website. Ross never personally sold drugs. On his own platform, he sold books and medicine. But was it really a crime worth a lifetime in a cage? Or was Ross a scapegoat? Something much bigger? And here's the craziest part. DEA agent Carl Force, the same undercover who infiltrated Silk Road, was secretly extorting Ross for money the whole time. Ross gave him about $750,000 in Bitcoin. Carl was later convicted and sentenced to 6 years. And another DEA agent working on the case was also busted for stealing Bitcoin. He got 5 years. And both convictions were kept secret not until after Ross's trial. And then there was another figure, Roger Clark, also known as Variety Jones. He was Ross's mentor, strategist, and one of the biggest Silk Road sellers. He was sentenced to 20 years. Meanwhile, Ross got double life, plus 40. He was painted as a drug kingpin. He was painted as a murderer. Even though no murders ever happened, Ross wasn't allowed to call his own witnesses. Even at some point, Andreas Antonopoulos, a Bitcoin expert, came forward to testify, but it was shut down. Ross couldn't present evidence of government corruption in his case. Still, he didn't rage. In court, with his future shattered, he apologized. He begged for mercy, asking for a light at the end of the tunnel.
Pretty sure I want to start a family in the next 5 years.
Nice, okay.
Just, yeah, make more friends and close people I love. Yeah, I want to focus on being more connected to people.
Very good. And 20 years.
20 years. I want to have had a substantial positive impact on the future of humanity by that time.
His family raised $1 million for bail. The judge denied it. The U.S. government auctioned off Ross's 144,000 seized Bitcoin, at that point legitimizing Bitcoin for the first time. The world was watching, but Ross never stopped fighting for freedom until in 2021, from behind prison walls, he gave a keynote at the Bitcoin conference held in Miami. His case shook the internet as people heard Ross discuss his life and the horror of his conviction. Over the years, Ross's case sparked a movement. Libertarians, Bitcoiners, justice advocates rallied around him, and the media began to cover the story again with fairness and a growing sense of urgency.
On Tuesday, October 1st, our friend Ross was arrested.
And all we are left with is questions. More questions than answers.
We don't know what happened. We don't know all the facts. But we do know something.
We know the person.
We know that Ross is the friend who always shows up.
The friend you call when your car breaks down, or when you need help moving, or when you just need help.
Ross is the friend you trust because he gives you his honest opinion, even when it's difficult to hear.
Ross is the friend you can tell anything to because he always listens and never judges.
We know who Ross is. He's the son who makes time for his family and the brother who moves across the world to be close to his sister.
And the nephew who's always happy to see me.
We know who Ross is, and we know who Ross is not.
Ross is not a criminal mastermind, and Ross is not a killer.
We ask you to look beyond the headlines and see the man we love.
We ask you to reserve judgment until all the facts are in.
And finally, we ask for your support.
But then it all changes one last time. It was 2024. During the presidential race, Donald Trump promised to commute Ross's sentence if elected.
And if you vote for me on day one, I will commute the sentence of Ross Ulbricht to a sentence of time served.
And on January the 21st, 2025, it happened. President Donald Trump granted Ross Ulbricht a full and unconditional pardon. At 40 years old, after 12 years in prison, Ross walked free. He had spent 11 birthdays behind bars, sacrificed 12 years of his life waiting. Finally, he reunited with his wife and family. Ross Ulbricht received over 300 Bitcoin in donations after his release, as the Bitcoin community set up a support fund for him, and later auctioned his final prison ID card for 11 Bitcoin, worth over $1 million. The end of one journey and the beginning of another.